Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. Welcome to part 4 of The Way of the Archetype. Lovely to see you, Aaron. First time that you can join us. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in your part of the world. So everybody take a look around. Please mute yourself so we can have a better quality recording. Bottom left-hand corner. And take a look around, see who's here. So thank you for that, Barb. Elizabeth won't be joining us today. So if it feels good, send her some good wishes, whatever is happening in her world, some loving kindness. So I'm really enjoying the conversations and discussions on the Facebook group. If you are not on the group, I would recommend you get on it. And if you don't have a Facebook account, create one, even if that's for the sole purpose of archetypes, and you can delete your account afterwards. There is immense learning happening by some of you posting your actual direct experience, which is a lot more effective than me telling you about stuff. You already know that. So really consider going to that group. So we're going to kick off with 7 minutes in breakout rooms where you just get to talk about what happened in the week around archetypes, what you've noticed, what you learned, what you applied, because some of you have done all those things. So let's do that. We will do it like that. So there'll be one group of 3, the rest will be 2. You got 7 minutes. Please manage the time yourselves so that about halfway you switch over to the other person, unless you're just having a two-way conversation, which of course is fine. So you'll have an invitation on your screen right now. Please accept it. And I'll see you back here in 7 minutes. I see some smiley faces. That's a good sign. So what came up? Let's have 2 or 3 of you share what happened in the week and what just happened in your share.
Robin and I decided we're actually already recognizing and doing these things without labeling them. When I try and label, well, where are you, what group are you coming from, then I'm all in my head trying to work it out and being with the person I'm speaking to. So just to follow that gut, and eventually it'll all sink in and tie up.
Beautiful. So I totally agree. We all do these things anyway. It's just a case of sometimes it's helpful to label them because it might allow us to step into a better archetype for the job at hand. But yeah, we all do them anyway already. Thank you, Shirley. Anyone else?
Yeah, I loved what Shirley said, because I have that sense as well. And those moments when I get stuck, like when people get angry, I can feel myself. There's a slight disconnect happens, and now kind of being able to understand it in a different context, I can go, oh, okay, warrior wound. Okay, this is what I need to do. So it's in those moments where you go, oh, I don't know, kind of thing, that I think then it's particularly helpful.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Dermot's example that he posted in the Facebook group about that man being how he usually is, and then Dermot feeling really hurt, and then actually just doing the comforting pose to comfort the little boy. You know, I believe that the model allows us to practically apply it, and perhaps even more useful, Megan, as you just said, when we're stuck, when something is happening and it's unpleasant or painful, then at least it gives us very specific direction and options. Anyone else?
Okay. Okay. Just so much. This is the stuff, I just adore it. At first I was very much in my head about it, and I've realized I don't need to be like, I think Megan just said. Oh no, somebody else, Shirley. Because it is happening anyway. And I had a session with a new client yesterday. Interestingly, she came to measure up for curtains in my house and booked in for a session. So that was pretty cool. And she's got a little kid on antidepressants and all that, so she might come too. But it was interesting at the end of the session. I didn't, one thing I am doing now automatically is slowing myself down. I've seen that pattern, that really fast pattern. So that's become an automatic thing, but I didn't go into the session with this in front of me you know, being aware of practicing it. But what I noticed when I looked at the outcome was, with all the questioning that happened in the matrix, all the archetypes came flying in, all her resources that she chose. She brought them all in. It just happened. Yeah, it was just, yeah, so I'm feeling more relaxed about it versus, oh my gosh, am I actually ever going to learn this stuff? And I know it, and I know there is a lot to learn. I think I have stress around learning, yeah.
So notice how the magician, for some of you, have come online very strongly, because the magician is intellect and understanding and insight. So a lot of your magicians is like going on overdrive, trying to understand the model. And for me, that's part of the learning process. Nothing wrong with that. What I also like is for some of you, the balance is starting to happen. And you go, oh, I don't need to be so about it. I can just do it. I can just feel it. So notice on the horizontal axis, some of you with the content of this course is moving from magician to lover. Just embodying it, applying it, just loving the process. So on that point, I also want to talk, we are on page 20, we'll start today with sovereign facilitation. And again, one of the things I really like about these particular models is they are very simple to implement and apply to day-to-day life stuff. So remember that in the model that Cliff teaches, that I totally endorse, the sovereign and the warrior are on the vertical axis. And remember that the way of connecting of the sovereign is being. And given the week I've had, I will add to that blessing. It doesn't say that in your manual, but I think that the way of being, the way of connecting for the sovereign is to be and to bless. And that's bless everything. Bless people, bless your enemies, bless the birds, bless yourself, bless life, bless your feelings, blessing, a blessing energy. So we might also say it's a blessing way of being. On the bottom end of it is the warrior, and the warrior is all about doing. Right? So we also move between this axis. The further away we move, or the closer we move to doing, the further away we move from being. The further away we move to being, the less we do. So give you a practical example. I was sitting on my balcony last night looking at the world, and my next door neighbor came out, and she saw me on the balcony. We said, hello, Hara. And she goes, do you want anything from the store? I said, no, thanks, I'm good. She says, oh, I can't just sit like this. I have no more books. I have to go buy a magazine right now. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with reading a magazine. But in that moment, instantaneously, I was like, she's finding it very hard to remain in sovereign, to just sit at home, look at a candle. She needs to do something. And I mean, I am like that too sometimes. So again, there's no judgment, there's no criticism, but the model is so easily applied in real life stuff. So sovereign facilitation, those of you in the Facebook group would have seen, we started a conversation about what I would call the antidote to shame is dignity. I read that once or heard it, and I just love it. A lot of things fell into place. So in that case, if the antidote for shame, and remember, shame is the wound in the sovereign. The more shame somebody carries, the harder it's going to be for them to be in a blessing state. The harder it's going to be for them to just be with what is. Now, an emotion that spontaneously comes up when we are in the balanced sovereign is joy. So this morning after I prepared, I went outside, sat on the balcony, look at the mountains, look at the pond, and two little birds starting flying around. And it seemed to me first that they were fighting, because the one seemed to be trying to get away from the other one, and then the other one would come and the first one would fly away, and the one would sit in a tree and the other one would come and it would fly away. And I was kind of upset by it, right? There's this apparent act of violence from one bird to another. And then I kind of realized that I know nothing about the animal world, and I don't know why they do that, and it's just kind of the way it is. And then I noticed that this was actually like a mating dance or a courting dance. The sounds that came from the one was like, oh, it was delicious. And the one at the back, listen, I mean, he wanted it and he wanted it now. There was no way he was going to let the first one get away. And when I kind of saw that beautiful, innocent mating dance, I just started laughing. It was just joyful in the moment. In that moment, I could accept everything just the way it is. So also know that we get triggered by things. I got triggered into my sovereign this morning by 2 little birds having a mating dance, and could recognize it for what it is. And the minute that that happened, it was so much easier for me to bless myself and bless the world, and have the sense that I can accept what's happening now. I can accept what I'm seeing, and that everything is perfect in some way, shape, or form. And that came by watching 2 little birds. So what I wrote in the Facebook group, I'll repeat briefly for those of you that's not on the group. If dignity is the antidote to shame, and shame is the wound of the sovereign, then when somebody comes into your chair with the sovereign wound, carrying shame and unworthiness, then it is the easiest thing in the world for us to help them feel dignity. And it starts with a simple word of acknowledgement. Acknowledge them as a worthy human being. Acknowledge them as important. Acknowledge them as being worthy of love and attention and kindness by really truly seeing them. So there's a whole bunch of examples. We'll go through them on page 20, but know that the essence of all of them is twofold. The one is to truly see them as a beautiful, beautiful human being that might be in pain, that might be stuck, that might be addicted. But under all that, they are a beautiful expression of life, innocent in every conceivable way. And the other prong to that is to help them see that. It's no point just we seeing it. Now, I did my horseshit comment at the end of the last call. There is value in external validation, and some clients and some of us need a lot of external validation, or needed a lot of external validation, before we could even consider the fact that we can bless ourselves. When the shame runs so deep and the unworthiness runs so deep, it is very, very hard for us to acknowledge ourselves, to see any good or beauty or love or kindness or skill or whatever it might be. I had a session with somebody last Thursday, somebody in Australia, and I listened to the recording. So those of you that have recordings of your sessions, I used to say to clients, listen to it, don't listen to it, it doesn't matter. I believe it does matter. And when I listened to the hour and 15-minute session recording, one sentence made it worth $180 that I paid for the session. And that sentence was, she said to me, it's time for you to surrender to the goodness inside you. I love that sentence. She didn't say you have to admit it, you have to find it, you have to accept it. She said you have to surrender to the goodness inside you. And I believe if we can help clients surrender to the goodness that's already inside them, then we help bless the sovereign, and we allow them to go through the shame and the unworthiness and access a true joy for life and a joy for being who they are. And each of you will do that in your own ways. There are some suggestions on page 20. That block at the top of page 20, all I'm saying there is, if you cannot find it in you to bless them because of your own wounds and life patterns, be kind enough to yourself to let them go as a client. Send them somewhere else, because they will know that you are judging them. It is impossible for them not to know. So if somebody can, like for me, as a gay man, it would be crazy to work with somebody who's very homophobic. It would just be silly, right? Why would I do that? Somebody coming into my house judging me. I mean, I don't know yet how to find the loving compassion for someone like that, the way that I can do for my other clients. I can work with somebody who beats his child and somebody who's on drugs, no problem. I can truly love and accept them for the way they are. So this is just a check for self. If it doesn't resonate and you can't love and bless them, pass them on to somebody else. So these words that are underlined in the first bullet point on page 20, bless them sincerely and consistently. So that's got to be your main modality. Find ways to bless them. In other words, become even more conscious. Notice what they wear. Notice what they say when they arrive. Notice what they say when they leave. They might just say, oh, I'm so excited. My partner and I are going away for a weekend. Remember that. Make a note of it if you need to. And the next time they come, ask them, so how was your weekend away with your partner? they're wearing something different, they're driving a different car, they're using different language, they just changed the job, they were just promoted or demoted, any of those things, it's really important for you to notice them and bless them. And then also I say that most importantly for the changes they experience. When Liesl does sessions, what she does in the beginning, she says, what would you like to get from the session? And then at the end of the session, she actually checks. She goes, so what are you leaving with? And I think that is a very important acknowledgement of change that has happened. So that's kind of a short-term thing, helping clients identify what happened in that particular session and what they gained from it, but also longer term. You know, one of my favorite stories is when I worked in Boston in the US, I had a client who had this fear of flying. And we used to work every Sunday afternoon, and he didn't shift. He used to fly to San Francisco, and there's a lot of turbulence on that route. So every week we work, and he doesn't really seem to change, and I'm racking my brain. And then one day he comes on the call, and he says, yeah, I don't want to work on flying today. When I asked him, I said, so, you know, how's flying been? He goes, no, I don't want to work on that. I want to work on my relationship with my wife. I said, okay, well, that's cool, but let's just check on the flying thing. He goes, what are you going on about the flying thing for? The flying is fine. He didn't even notice that this massive shift had happened. Another guy came to me, for his wife said to him, if you don't sort out your sexual stuff, if they hadn't had sex in something like 10 years, if you don't sort that out, I will divorce you. Sexual relationship is important to me with my life partner, and if you don't sort out your stuff, we're done. So he came to me, we did one session on Skype. In the beginning of the next session, I say, so what have you noticed? It's my favorite question to clients. What are you noticing, or what have you noticed? I would ping them a WhatsApp during the week. What are you noticing? A very open question, not what are you noticing in the work that you and I are doing? What are you noticing with the raids that we're working with? Just what are you noticing? So he says, it was an okay week. You know, there was some stuff happening at work. There was that time my wife and I had spontaneous sex for the first time in 10 years. But, you know, other than that, there's not really a big deal. Like, say what now? Let's just rewind then one quickly. So I think there is value in the acknowledgement, because for some people it gives hope that they can change more. The proof that they've changed a little bit helps them get momentum to allow more change. In those days that they are so hopeless about things, or the shame comes back, which is the sovereign that we're talking about, then at least they can remind themselves that something's changed. So we spoke about the next one, really see them, remember the birthday, remember personal things about them. Let them be good enough for you. Now, for some of us, it may be hard sometimes when, you know, sometimes my world is very black and white. Either you do your homework or you don't. There's no like, yeah, but life got in. No, life did not get in the way. What happened is you prioritized something else. And that doesn't make it a bad thing. You could have prioritized a sick child. So good for you. I mean, I think that's reasonable to prioritize your child over your homework. But 9 times out of 9.5, it's just a story. Right? They couldn't do their homework as a story. They must stop at traffic lights somewhere. You can do your homework at a traffic light. You must go pee sometime during the day. What do you got better to do than when you sit on the pot? Do your homework, right? A lot of the homework is internal work. So when a client comes and they didn't do their homework, again, the shame that they feel or the nervousness about being judged is bad enough as it is. They don't need us to blow judgment on top of that. Bless them for what they have done. Bless them for who they are. Bless them that they might do it next time. But don't, especially when they arrive in shame, now is not the time to pick up this battle and trying to force them into doing the homework. It'll probably just create more resistance. Make them important. I always give my clients, the 6-session clients, a book somewhere through. Sometimes I'll send them video links or just a meditation or something that I enjoyed and think that they might enjoy. Okay, validation and affirmation every step of the way. That is the most important job. So we spoke before on Shirley's check-in that these things are just happening spontaneously. I also, again, think it's important that when I realize my client is stuck in shame, I make more of an active effort to actually truly bless them from the place of the sovereign. Now, when I say help them clear out their shame and not good enough unworthiness, you know, that typically is not a one-session wonder. That is typically requires a lot of internal work. Those of you familiar with EFT Matrix, I don't know a better way than Matrix to help clear out shame. but we will talk about some other techniques too. And again, remember that the antidote for shame is dignity. So the best way we can help them is to feel dignified as human beings. Help them identify possibility and help to reconnect or rediscover possibility. People who are deeply stuck in shame typically see no different future. They don't really see a different outcome. They just imagine it'll always suck like this. Probably because everything else they've tried hasn't worked. So if we can, even by pointing out the changes that have happened, can allow them to get some, I say again, some upwards momentum to actually change, or that change is possible, then that would be a good thing for them to do, to start letting them buy into the fact that they might actually be able to change. The morph technique, I will post the morph technique on the Facebook group. Those of you not on Facebook that want it, you can email me. And so the morph technique works like this, very simply. Instead of talking about me, so Benny is upset right now, or I am upset right now, and I feel that everything is hopeless, and I'm so useless, and I'm not worth anything, and I'm a bad person, and all the I, which helps us to identify with the words coming out the mouth. You know, I cannot say I am broke 200 times a day and expect to become wealthy. It's not going to happen. And if you get wealthy, you'll probably lose it again. So I have to also take some responsibility for myself. But notice the genius in this morph technique. Instead of being stuck in the feeling of shame, we start changing the words. You can ask the client, so tell me, let's say the client said, I'm so unworthy. Then you might follow up with, well, tell me something about Benny that is worthy. Yeah, so it's not about you, it's about Benny. Or tell me something about him that is worthy. What archetype are we leading them towards when we ask that question? When we take them outside of themselves? I can see Carol's lips moving, magician. Yes. We are taking them on the horizontal axis out of the lover, which is totally identifying with that feeling of being unworthy or useless or whatever it might be. We're taking them into the magician. Remember, one of the energies in the magician is insight and introspection and observation and judgment, or another word for judgment, discernment. So often by talking about ourselves in a second or third person, like tell me about him, tell me about Benny, that it's easier for them, I want to say, to access a more balance or more truth rather than when they're speaking about themselves. Now also, and one of you did that, I forget now who it was. Again, when we are so stuck in our own stuff, it's very hard to really see the woods for the trees. When you are stuck and you're swimming in shame, it is virtually impossible to make healthy decisions. It's just from that place of shame. If you look at the human scale of emotions that was calibrated, on the scale of human emotions, shame is the lowest vibration. On a scale of 0 to 1,000, it comes in at 15 or 25, I forget now. That is the vibration closest to death. Death is 0. Shame is 15. So the power of shame to stop spontaneity, to stop people moving forward, to stop self-love, to stop kindness, to stop new ideas implementing, to stop going ahead is huge. And that's why this stuff is so important. Also, I refer you again, those of you that want to read more about shame and ways to work with it, on deepliving.com, my EFT website. The top right corner, there's like a little search icon. If you click on the search icon and you type in shame, you will find two things. You will find a lengthy document about my views on shame, and you will also find a short document that gives you specific techniques, word for word, that you can use with your clients to help them release guilt and shame. You can download that for free off deepliving.com. So this technique is we spoke about it briefly last time. So the client sits in a chair and they are just completely in a place of shame, and they are useless and pathetic, and they will never amount to anything. And you go, okay, Mary, come over here with me. And let's just pretend Mary is sitting there in the chair now. Tell me one thing about her that you can accept. Tell me one thing about her that you can bless. Or Mary has arrived today and she's a complete mess and she keeps on saying she's not worthy and she'll never amount to anything. What do you think she needs right now? Or what is one thing about her that is beautiful? Whatever questions you come up with, it's completely up to you. And I'll refer you back again to the clean language conversation we had last time. The clean language research really helps you to come up with those phrases about what to say. The purpose of this bullet point is just to say you pull the client out of the chair, put them somewhere else, and then ask the actual client that you've pulled out to give you perspective or insight on the chair. Because so again, we lean them into magician. So we're using a magician tool to heal a sovereign wound. If the client is unable to, even from a dissociated place, in other words, from outside the chair, come up with anything that is blessing or kind, then what you might do is physically move them further away. So move them to a different spot in the room, or move them even further away so they get more distance, more perspective. I don't know what it sounds like. In the beginning, I thought it was ridiculous. But this technique truly works. The further away you get them from the chair that represents the stuck or shameful them, the more perspective they seem to get. The more dissociated they become, the more in touch they are with the magician, and the more, I want to say, useful responses they can give you. Now, even though this is under the section of sovereign facilitation, appreciate it's a magician tool, and you can use that anytime. Does not matter whether the wound is in the magician, the warrior, the lover. You can use the magician tools pretty much in every wound, every quarter. Give them choice. We spoke about dignity. Dignity is also about appreciating that you have choice and that you have the power to make some choices, right? So if you want to bless yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to start blessing yourself while you are a doormat and saying yes to everything, even though you want to say no. Give them small opportunities to make choices. So, and it doesn't matter what the choices are. The purpose of the exercise is simply to make choices. It could be the next time you're not sure whether to go to the movies or go out to dinner, pick one. The next time somebody asks you to do something and you'd rather not, consider saying thank you and no. Help them make specific choices. Even if it's as simple as, here's my diary, you pick when you want to do the next appointment slot, right? Anything to validate them and help restore their dignity. And I think making healthy choices for self is a sign of having dignity. Give them or create opportunities where they put themselves first. For example, unless your practice is set up in a certain way or unless it's on Skype, let them pick the chair. Let them pick which glass of water they want. Simple things. If they're working on two issues, they've come because they have rage issues and they have financial trouble. Okay, good. Which one would you like to work on first? Acknowledge their dignity. Give them choices. Do what you can to let them lighten up about themselves. We are not saying that we want them to make fun of the grief. We want to say to them, if they take themselves very seriously, remember that that with the sovereign is interesting, because when you access sovereign, the joy comes, and when you access joy, the sovereign comes online. So it's kind of a two-way street. So see how you can help them create more joy or excitement or lighten up a little bit. 2 examples. One client, he had a big thing about he's spending all his time at work, not enough at home, and he had really lost his king. So he had, in a way, abdicated. He was flotsam and jetsam. He was not making business decisions. The business was barely making it, all that stuff. So his homework one weekend was to have fun with his 2 sons. And they went for surfer lessons. And in his words, surf lessons, he sucked at it. His 2 sons were great at it. He said, but I can't remember when last I had so much fun. Another example was somebody who took herself very seriously at a particular point in time. And her homework was for 5 days to post pictures on Facebook that put her in a not perfect light. Like where she had her hair weirdly, or it was a really bad angle or stuff like that. And that person's on the call. Maybe later she will be able to tell us what happened when she did that. Take them through guided visualizations where they meet themselves at birth. All right, here's the thing with shame. Unless something really dramatic happened in the womb, it is, in my experience, virtually impossible to see a baby in any other way than innocent. When you think about it, when was the last time you saw a little baby and went, poof? Okay, we typically see just the beauty and the natural expression and the crying and the pooing and the laughing and all that stuff happening in a nanosecond, and we just think it's awesome, unless of course it's yours and you have to clean it all up. So if you can take your client back to their moment of birth and you can help them see the innocence that happened at that time, or the innocence that was present at that time, it can often, when we do that, it takes them straight into the lover, and they will start grieving the loss of innocence when they got sexually abused or physically attacked or ostracized or sent to boarding school or whatever the case might be. So in my experience, when we can help clients grieve the innocence they've lost, they are doing beautiful and important inner work. And then do the 6 PRs. So again, those of you not familiar with 6 PRs, if you don't have a copy of it, those of you trained with me in EFT 1 and 2, it's in there. If you don't have it and you would like it, please email me and I will make sure that you get a copy of it. It is a very simple way to help with what's called in EFT world psychological reversals, which we might otherwise just call blocks to change. And when we can do a few simple short rounds of tapping on the blocks towards worthiness, then why wouldn't we, right? It takes 2 or 3 minutes and you never know what happens next. Something that's not in the manual. This is, again, remember we're talking about sovereign wounds. So somebody comes in feeling unworthy or full of shame, and they might say, oh, I'm useless. You might pick a tool, magician question, is that true? Now, those of you familiar with Byron Katie will recognize that question. If you're not familiar with Byron Katie, go to her website, thework.com. There's some free worksheets you can download there, and they're quite profound. So a simple question like, is it true that you are useless? Now, let's say the client is deep in shame and they say yes. Then you follow up with another question. Say, are you useless in all parts of your life? If they say yes, which is, if they're honest, they can't say yes. But let's say they say yes because they're so steeped in shame. You follow up again with, give me one instance where you are not useless. And it might be as simple as they're not useless when they brush their teeth. They can make a good cup of coffee. They show up for their sessions on time, right? It doesn't have to be big things. It just has to be things. What we want to do, we have to start lovingly challenge the thoughts that keep producing the same shame. And that's a good way to do it. Is it true? Is it true that nobody will ever love you again? Is it true that you can never have enough money? Is it true that you will never be promoted? And so on and so on. And then again, if they do that, then ask them if it's true in every part of their life, and then let them focus on the parts where it's not true. So homework for the week might be, every time you sit on the loo, come up with 5 things where you are not completely and utterly worthless. You know how to wipe your bum? Good. That's an example of not being useless, right? You can do that, at least you can do. Page 21. In fact, let's leave page 21 for now. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes in breakout rooms just to discuss what we've been talking about for about the last 20 minutes or so. So same rooms as before. Ellie, I'll put you there. Okay. All right. I want to hear from a couple of you. What came up in your conversations?
Well, we were talking about how we find that we're doing it intuitively, and then we're noticing ourselves doing it. Oh, look at that.
Perfect.
Oh.
Hey. Sweet. Thanks, Leslie. Anyone else?
Bennie, I just find that it's all helping me to be more accepting of everybody and all aspects of everybody. In a hard to describe. It makes me feel less intimidated, fearful of other people. It helps me to accept them just where they're at, even if they are angry or intimidating or whatever. I can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. So in addition to doing that in real life, which allows us to have more compassion for people when they're triggered, when we can move to that place with our clients, that it doesn't matter even when they're angry with us, we can still find our king or queen, our sovereign, to bless them and allow them to have an emotional experience. I think that's when real transformation happens. When, there's also some research that shows that the modality, the way we help clients, is less important than the connection between the helper and the client. In other words, the way that you treat your clients is more important than the fact whether you do EFT or matrix or coaching or prayer or whatever you might use. It's the relationship between you and the client that's most important. Anybody else?
Bennie, what I've discovered for me myself was that bringing what I call my sovereign online isn't like instant coffee, add water and there he is. I found that I have to build him up, I was talking about building an emotional bank account for my sovereign, and I feed it, make deposits every day. And sometimes there's a withdrawal. I didn't notice him, and I'm back down to zero. And it comes from a lifetime of not feeling good enough. So stepping into that, almost that voice is, who do you think you are? So it's eliminating those voices and building up my own self-esteem.
Yeah.
Making day, as you're describing here on page 20, just working through and finding ways to validate myself, approving of myself.
Yes.
Because previously I would validate other people from a place of not validating myself. And I'm trying to build up my own, bringing my sovereign more strongly online.
I think that's a beautiful way of saying that. I've been taking time out over the last week or so, and will continue to do that at least for another week, where I spend most of my time just sitting, and literally just sitting on my balcony for hours, just watching the mountains and the birds wanting to have sex and the pond. And what I've noticed I've never sat as still as I have been over the last 4 days, ever. I have done 7-day silent meditation retreats, but I was doing something. I was doing meditation. So one of the things that I've noticed, and it was kind of a shock in a way, was how negative my thinking actually was in relation to myself. So for example, I would realize or recognize that I have a thought that my ex-partner, who's now in a relationship, is probably delighted with it, and this guy must be much better than me. So even if that's true, and what does that even mean, being better than me? I mean, it's a ridiculous concept, right? We're two different individuals. So in that moment when I recognize that, what I've started doing just spontaneously is I will say often out loud, please don't do that. That really hurts. It's really painful. And I believe by doing that consistently, I'm making deposits in my sovereign bank account, as Diarmuid's analogy works, every single time. Something else that I'm doing is, because my life is by no means perfect right now, so I'll sit there and I'll look at the tree and I'll say, I can accept that tree. And I can accept this railing, and I can accept that pond, and I can accept those trees, and I can accept those birds, and I can accept this car that's parked in front of my house. Just a state of acceptance. And the more I do that, then I can also accept that I'm single. I can accept that I'm in pain. I can accept that I'm going to go to bed alone tonight. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning alone. I can accept that I'm nervous and anxious. What if this week doesn't bring any change, and so on. Again, I think by that ongoing acceptance of what is and acceptance of myself, I'm moving more and more to more deposits in the sovereign, but also moving to a place of trust, which I think is a sovereign quality. The ability to trust. Now, some of you might trust in a God or in a higher power or in the universe or in love or whatever you trust, or in a higher self or in your soul. But again, without that level of trust, it's going to be very hard for us to actually acknowledge our sovereign and live in it. So any of those things that you can do, I believe, helps top up your sovereign bank account, so that on those days when the shame comes or those painful thoughts come, you actually have enough of a sovereign presence inside your energy field that you will say, no, I will, no, don't do that. That's a shameful thought. It's not helpful. Or I start making up disaster scenarios for the future. We're crazy people. So the minute I catch it, I go, please don't do that. It makes me anxious. It takes my energy away. It's like, please don't do that. So kind of a very loving way, I believe, to build more of a sovereign presence. Top of page 21, there's another way that you can work with them if they were to say something like they're useless.
Your sound's gone again. Still gone.
Holy moly.
Maybe we'll just unmute and take over the whole meeting. No, fix it.
Go, Leslie, go. Well, while we're waiting, I do loving kindness meditation, metta practice, which I find very, very useful for the sovereign and for blessing. So that's just another way that we can do this for ourselves and for everyone else, really.
Thanks for that, Carol. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, hallelujah. All right, so it's slightly provocative on top of page 21. If somebody says, I'm so rubbish or I'm unlovable, then you go, is that even true? Like your whole tone of voice conveys that you don't believe that for a second. It's a ridiculous statement, but you don't say that, you just imply it. Like, really? Like, is it true that you're useless? And then if they say yes again, then you might do a couple of rounds of EFT if you are an EFTer, even though I'm completely useless. And then you follow up by saying, I'm useless because, well, I'm not good at anything. I'm useless because I just am. I'm useless because, I'm useless because, I'm useless because. So let's start tapping out the reasons for them feeling useless in the first place. But I love this because sometimes they start laughing when you say this in this incredible voice. Up to now, you've just met them where they're at. You've agreed with everything. And then suddenly you challenge that. You're like, really? Is that true? That you're useless? And then you take it from there. In terms of homework that you can give them, for some people, this is excruciating. Let them ask somebody to give them time to simply listen to them. Okay, most of my conversations nowadays, I'm very selective with who I spend time with. Most of the people, I want to say all, but there might be an exception I can't think of. The people that I hang out with listen when I speak, and I listen when they speak. There are no interruptions. There's no, well, let me just tell you about my story while you're telling me about yours. There's a real deep listening. And I think there isn't a more effective way to truly bless someone than to truly listen to understand. And listening is an act with the ears, not the mouth. So get them to ask somebody to listen to them for 5 minutes, 50 minutes, doesn't matter, without interrupting, without fixing, without saying anything. Please, will you just listen to me for 15 minutes? There's some things I'd like to talk about. Let them ask around. Send an email to 5 friends or make 5 WhatsApps or make 5 phone calls. Say, would you be willing to tell me 3 things about me that you love about me the most? Okay, for some of us, it's like a scary thing. I've done this. It's also very beautiful when the responses comes back and there are 1 or 2 qualities that everybody talks about. Okay, it's time to start paying attention to that. If everybody talks about your kindness, well, then probably you're a kind person. So helping to bless yourself by receiving blessing from others. We spoke about that. Get them to post funny pics of themselves. And I don't just mean funny. I mean like photos that put them in an unflattering light with like not shaved for a week and hair all over the place and stuff like that. Help them to identify, even if it's 1 simple thing that they can do to prioritize themselves, be selfish and ask for what they want. Now with small kids and a family, it's the easiest excuse in the world. I have no time for myself. Well, make time for yourself. Even if it's 10 minutes in the garden, Lock the kids in the Harry Potter cupboard. Put the husband in there too. Go sit in the garden for 10 minutes and smell a flower. 3 minutes, if that's all you can do. Say to the family, say to the partner, listen, you take care of the kids and the dog and the cat and everything else tonight. I'm going to take a hot bath for 20 minutes. Even if it's something as simple as the next time you are by default inclined to keep the door open for someone else, how about you walk through the door first? How about you take the first slice of cake and the last slice of cake, right? All that stuff. Again, do not underestimate the power of even simple things in the beginning to prioritize themselves. It'll start building. Let them do one thing that they really enjoy. Like, I love going to the movies. I have not been to the movies in 6 months. And then Saturday, I was like, I'm going to the movies. I had a blast. Deadpool 2, not as funny as Deadpool 1, but it was amusing, light entertainment, and it made me chuckle a few times. Doesn't matter whether it's knitting or reading or sitting in nature or going scuba diving or whatever it is. And then this is, for me, is an accountability issue. So are you willing to commit, Benny, to doing one thing in this week that you enjoy? And I will ask you about it next week. Yeah, sure. Now they've made a promise. They've made a commitment. And then you can, if you want to take it further, say, let me know when you've done it. If I hadn't heard from you by Thursday, would it be okay if I check in on you or check in with you? If they say yes, then by Thursday you find, hey, what's going on? When are you going to do this fun thing? We're meeting on Monday. Remember, you made me a promise. The only reason why I started socializing again after about 18 months of complete or near complete isolation is because the psychologist that I'm seeing to help me through this got me to promise that I will do something about it. So I have spent more social time in the last 2 weeks than in the previous 12 months put together, just because I made her a promise. Didn't feel like it. I still don't feel like going out. But when I do, I have a really good time because I hang out with people that really care about me. Okay, counting. Let them count every day how many times they put themselves down. What do you think would be the purpose of doing this exercise?
To bring awareness to what they're doing to themselves.
Yes, I have done so much personal work. It sounds ridiculous to me to say to you that the last 5 days of sitting still has been the most powerful days of my entire life, because I've become aware of how I pain myself with my thoughts about myself. I mean, I've always knew I had a hyperactive inner critic, but never realized the extent of it. So we want to bring awareness to it, because once there's awareness, it can change. Like this, please don't do that. It just happens spontaneously. And now I'm actively practicing it. Counting sheep. This was kind of funny. There's a really lovely man in Germany, Thorsten Komenek, who's helped me immensely through many years. And you can look him up. I would, if he's taking private clients, often he doesn't. See if you can get a couple of sessions with Thorsten. He is quite amazing. He calls it counting sheep. It's very simple. Twice a day, morning and night. Let them rate on any scale, 0 to 100%, 0 to 10, doesn't matter, how much they value themselves. It's a simple awareness exercise, and that will be food for the next session with you. If your client does that, let them bring their little notebook so you can actually check what is actually going on with the way that they value themselves. Again, is it making it conscious? It's black on white, it's pen on paper, there it is. Mirror tapping. Okay, for some people this is excruciating, or if you don't do tapping, conversations in the mirror. Now, if you want to take it a step up, get them to do it naked, not with you, at home. There's something about, so many of us carry shame about our bodies, that actually having a talk with self or a loving conversation with body when you're naked in front of the mirror can bring up an enormous amount of emotion. So lover work, probably a whole bunch of grief when you realize how hard you've been on yourself and your body, how judgmental you've been, how harsh you've been with it. A lot of healing can happen in that way. Ask them what they would most like to hear about themselves. And then you say it to them. You've got to mean this. If you can't mean it, rather don't say it, because it'll just fall flat. But if they really want to hear that they're a good person, And you can take their hands and look them in the eyes and say, Mary, you are a good person. Then that blessing would also help. Or they can ask somebody else, can ask their partner to tell them what they really want to hear. Let them write down or just recite in their head, 3 things, 5 things, 10 things they love or like or appreciate about themselves. If they cannot find anything they love, like, or appreciate, start with accept. I can accept that I'm tall. I can accept that I wear glasses. I can accept that I have big ears. I can accept that I'm a man. Okay? Simple things initially, if that's what it takes to build the bridge to higher blessing. It's like putting small amounts into the bank account, and then compound interest will start taking care of the rest as the bank account grows. Create your own sentence completion exercises. Sentence completion exercises for me is one of the most powerful tools I've ever used, because the way that these questions are phrased, because you use the word because, it is designed to access the unconscious mind and start bringing to the surface what's in there unconsciously that people hadn't even thought about. I know I'm valuable because, remember, or notice also in that sentence, the assumption is that you're valuable. So now you have to come up with proof how that statement is true. So it doesn't question the fact that you're valuable, it just says, give me the proof. So going into what's called a trans-derivational search into the unconscious mind with the assumption that you are valuable, then you can come up with a proof how you are valuable, which would be starting to be the antidote for the shame that tells you you're not. Or I might be good enough. If I am good enough, it's just a no, is a non-starter with a client because they can't go there. Well, I might be good enough because, and then they come up with as many reasons, 5, 10, 15 for every sentence stem. I also, when I do this, I give clients 3 or 4 or 5 of these sentence stems, and I get them to write at least 5, but also as many as they want for each one, or at least 10. Really, and it's not about making it hard for them, but listen, in the end, you cannot do your clients' work for them. You can love them and accept them and encourage them and all that stuff, and you can hold their hand, but ultimately, I had to take that step in the Himalayas. He guided me and coached me and told me exactly where to step, and his hand was there ready to help me. But I had to take the step. I had to overcome the fear to take the step up to the next level. So it is also about leaving responsibility where it belongs, which is with the client. It is not your responsibility to heal them. I do not believe you have that power anyway. It's your responsibility to facilitate, to make easy, to lead them into the change for them to do themselves. I truly respect, if I truly respected myself, then, well, I would treat myself a lot better, and I'll start exercising again, and I would say no when I mean no, and yes when I mean yes, and so on. Let them come up with their own sentence stems. I know that I have these sentence stems do not have to be so-called positive, to be anything. So deep digging into the negative, I know that I have no value because, well, people treat me that way, I'm rubbish, I'm stupid, whatever. Let this stuff come up to the surface. Or I matter because, or I don't matter because. Just create your own, right? Just create your own. Become creative, do 1 or 2 of these. The more you do it, the simpler it becomes. Any comments, questions, observations about page 21?
I just want to say how deeply helpful this is, because I have a client that has such deep shame, and we seem to get to the point where I feel really good for 3 or 4 days, and then it goes back, and it keeps doing that, and it keeps doing that, and it keeps doing that.
Yeah.
So this is, amazing.
Good.
Valuable.
Good.
Very good.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there's something, and I'm still holding the concept kind of tentatively, and it's when you said it's so much about the sovereigns, about trust, and you know that I work with parents and with children, and you just listen to the dialogue that often happens with young children. You're going to fall. You're not strong enough to do this. You won't manage that. Be careful. You're shy. And that's basically almost like setting us up not to have that balanced sovereign and that innate trust in ourselves that we can do it. And it's just, putting that bit together.
That's beautiful. I'd never even thought of it that way. Yeah. Absolutely. It's almost like we programmed to not be balanced sovereigns. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Bless us all. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a client who I brought the sovereign in this way, as I had her speak to her heart and say she was sorry, that she was sorry and that she deserved better. And we started talking, and I told
Leslie,
her
she
she's talking to her
spoke
heart.
to whom?
She spoke to her heart.
Oh, her heart. Okay.
Because she couldn't speak to herself like that. So I had to speak to her heart and say she was sorry and you deserved better and I'm so sorry and I love you. And about halfway through, I started using her name. So I love you, Lisa. You deserve better, Lisa. I love you, Lisa. And then and what happened was she couldn't feel her heart. And as we went through, it's almost like she cracked open. She could start to feel her heart. And I just had her say that until she started crying and realizing that she was doing this to herself and that there was love for her. And that was quite really powerful. So when you were showing me this, it was kind of, it just did it intuitively. I didn't read it anywhere, but it just seemed like a good thing to do. And it turned out that it was. Yeah.
What I'm loving about what you're saying is like meeting the client where they are, leading them to the next step, meeting them where they are, leading them to the next step. So just talking to her heart first and then adding her name to it, like gently, gently, gently leading the client to a more powerful place. Time for one more, if there is. Anybody else?
But then you have a modification on if I get them to step out of where they are into their sovereign and speaking to themselves. So they're asking the question, so what was it that they really wanted to hear? And then what do you think about, what do you as the sovereign think about them? Tell them what they would love to hear that they were never able to hear, and then to write that down. And then to get them to step back into themselves, into the chair, and then to read that back to them. Does that make sense?
It does. So what Gemma is talking about is another technique. So you might want to make some notes. It's not in the manual, where you actually ask the client who's sitting in the chair to step into their sovereign. Now you're going to need to find the words for that. You might say to step into the part of you that loves you or the part of you that can bless you. And then when the client steps into that, you ask the client who's now in the sovereign energy, like, what would Bennie like to hear? Or what does Bennie need from you, or whatever the case might be? You as practitioner, write down whatever they say verbatim, word for word. And then once that's all done and you've elicited a lot of information from, or as much as you need from the sovereign, then you flip them back, you put the sovereign back in the client chair, and then you read it back to them. So in that case, it's really the true sovereign that's blessing them as opposed to just you blessing them. Does that make sense, everybody? Is that what you meant, Dermot? Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. All right, so we're going to do some practice. Now, some of you might have calculated we're not going to get through all the 4 archetypes in the 4 calls. It was a guess how many weeks we'll be together. So next week is supposed to be the bonus call, but next week will now be part 5 because we'll only get to the stuff that we get to. I considered it, and it seems to me that these side conversations is essential for the process. And the time we spent on the lover to really set the scene seemed to have clicked a lot of stuff into place for you. So I'm really okay with the pace that we're going. So next week we'll do part 4, and then I'll add another bonus call, which will do something fun and juicy, which I don't know yet what that might be. Okay, so if the sovereign is all about blessing, then you need to flex your blessing muscle. You need to practice that. For some of you, it'll be easy. For some of you, it'll be very hard. It fascinated me. It fascinated me beyond description. Those of you on the EFT and Matrix mentoring calls that I used to host, by the way, if you are continuing those calls, and I think you are, I'd love to hear from you how they're going. At the end of the call, I would suggest to everybody, like, check in with one thing you love about yourself, or one thing about you that's fabulous, or one thing about you that's amazing. And the difficulty some people have to come up with even one thing about themselves that's beautiful or amazing or sexy or whatever, it really fascinates me. And for me, it is a symptom of a lack of sovereign energy. So in order to practice that, what we're going to do is we're going to do the 6 PRs, which is listed as one of the tools. So I'm going to demonstrate that. We're going to do that as a group, and then you're going to go and play in your breakout groups. Those of you not familiar with EFT, you can just tap where I'm tapping, so on the side of the hand. And the 6 PRs are very simple. So please repeat these words after me. Feel free to change them if they don't land in the right way. It's important that the words resonate with you. So even if it's impossible for me to bless myself, I deeply and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even if it's not safe for me to truly bless and see myself as beautiful, I'm still a good person, and I choose to be loving and kind to myself as best I can. Even if I feel too much shame to truly bless and value myself, I really am doing the best I can. Even if parts of me is too angry to truly bless and value who I am, I am still a good person, and Benny thinks that I'm beautiful. Who would I be if I truly blessed and saw myself? Who would I be if I could see the beauty in me and the grace and my talents and my kindness, my compassion? Who would I be if I acknowledged these? And even if parts of me think that I don't deserve to truly bless and value myself for who I am still a good enough person. And I'm doing the best I can. And I choose to be loving and kind to myself. And then we'll tap through the points. So what if it was possible to truly bless myself? What if it was safe to value myself? What if I could release any blocking shame that has prevented me from truly loving and valuing who I am? What if I could release any blocking anger, resentment, irritation, or frustration with myself, and truly bless me for the beautiful person I am? Who would I be if I blessed myself? And how would that change things? How might I show up differently in the world if I truly blessed myself? What if I deserved to truly see and bless myself? And take a nice deep breath in and out. You're going to go into rooms and you're going to take turns. There'll be I'll tell you about the timing in a bit. And you are going to get the opportunity to bless yourself, to bless your life, to bless the partner or partners that's with you in your breakout room. And it might sound with I bless, or I can bless, or I will bless, anything like that. And then you just see what comes out of the mouth next. I bless you for showing up on these calls every time. I bless myself for standing up every single time that I fall down. I bless myself for the way that I have been sitting with my emotions in a way I have never done before. I bless myself for the preparation I do for these calls. I bless my family who seem to love me no matter what. I bless the rain that fell in Cape Town yesterday because we really need it and we've got some. You get the idea? Bless the person that's with you, bless yourself, bless your life, bless people in your life. Get into the mode of blessing. If it feels good, you can tap or squeeze fingertips if you want. So you'll have, let's do this real juicy, 3 or 4 minutes each. So I'll give you 8 minutes for that. If you run out of things to bless, bless the same things. Just whenever you are stuck, appreciate that the sentence stem, I bless, is part of the process. So when you're stuck, say the words out loud, I bless, and then you see what comes up. Don't sit there silently waiting for the answer to come. Saying the words I bless is part of the process to help elicit what you can bless inside yourself. There will be, again, 2 groups of 3. Please manage the time among yourselves. So this is a solitary exercise where one person starts and finishes. The next person do theirs, the last person do theirs if there's 3 in a group, and then we'll all come back here to the main group. So 8 minutes, and I'll see you back when you're all blessed up. So I want to play you a song, which I think summarizes very beautifully the sovereign energy and also what I believe the most beautiful place is for us as practitioners to go to when our clients come in and they hurt. So you can make yourself as comfortable as you can. You can close your eyes. You can leave them open as you wish. And just listen to the words. Can you hear the music? Just nod your heads. Perfect, thank you. So I'd like to hear from you.
Oh, I'd like to say how gorgeous that felt. That just felt unbelievable. You know, I could feel it like ringing like a truth through my body.
Sweet. Thank you, Jane. Anyone else?
It actually moved me to tears, so I had to get the tissues.
Oh, good. So the lover has come online and the lover wants to express some grief. Beautiful. Liesel?
In our group, we happened to come upon the difference between I feel blessed and I bless. So I'm wondering if you could say a few words about that difference.
How about you say a few words on the difference?
Left myself in for that one. So it feels to me like because it's also easy for me to go into I feel so blessed because I have XYZ. That's like a receiving. It's like I have nothing to do with it. There's all these other wonderful people that are blessing me, that are, giving me all these wonderful things, and I feel so blessed. It's the grateful energy, and it's a beautiful energy too. And in my body, it doesn't feel like I'm the one then dishing anything out with a benevolent, good heart. Like I have so much to give that I can share from that place. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Now, even if I tried, I couldn't explain it better than that, says the sovereign. So well done, Liesel.
Bennie?
How easy it is to you.
At times I feel the word bless, maybe because of my background in the church, is at times difficult in the sense, the understanding is blessing something goes out of you, through you departing or imparting something. It's easier for me to say I value. I can't bless the rain actually blessed me, but I can value the rain.
So I think in the end, it is important to pick the languaging that works for you. So for me, I bless the rain and it feels so good. It feels like I'm thanking it. Maybe that's another way of saying that actually. I want to know, rain, that I see you and I love you and I bless you. So for me, that works. I do find the word blessing, sometimes people really struggle with it. It's like they don't really get it. So absolutely change the languaging in a way that it works for you. Jane, you okay with the sound now? Okay, perfect. She is. Anybody else want to share anything about the song or about your check-in before the song?
Bennie, I noticed a big difference in the song where I was just talking about, or wasn't talking about, I was thinking in my mind as the song was going, that I am beautiful, and that sat with me okay. But as soon as the line came in about the way other people see me, it's a completely different thing. So I feel like I can manage the I'm beautiful bit.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to imagine that anyone else would see me that way.
Okay, so Robin shares that. I go into magician mode immediately. I'm curious. I want more information. I want to understand this better. So here's what I ask her. Robin, what is it about acknowledging that other people see you as beautiful that's hard? What is it about that's hard?
It's imagining it.
And what's hard about, or what makes it hard to imagine it?
It just doesn't feel true.
So what feels true instead of that?
I know I'm beautiful.
Mm-hmm. But what must be true about the other people that you find it so hard to imagine them seeing you as beautiful? What must they believe about you if they don't believe you're beautiful?
I think it's just hard to believe they would notice me.
Because? Give it some time.
Because I'm just this wee little minute thing compared to everybody out there.
So really, I mean, is that even true?
No. But I'm seeing the other people as like the whole universe, you know.
Okay, so let's do one thing at a time. You say that you know it's not true. So what is true instead?
Is that I'm just like everybody else.
Is that even true?
No.
That's the right answer. So if that's not true, then what is true, Robin?
We're all different.
Mm-hmm. And so if you made that an I statement, how would you say that?
I'm different to everybody else.
Yeah. And what does that mean, that you are different to everybody else?
I am beautiful in ways that are different to everybody else.
That's right. And this is a great question. If you don't use this question, you're missing out. Write it down. How do you know that you are beautiful?
How do I know? Because I do and say and think beautiful things.
You do. You do. And how else do you know that you are beautiful?
Because Evan smiled at me.
Okay. There is so much love in that smile. I agree.
There is.
Yes. And one more reason. How do you know that you are beautiful?
Because my boys love me.
Okay, there you go. Now, everybody on the call, if Robin was your client and this was the end of the session, what would you suggest for Robin as homework?
To write down things about herself that she finds beautiful.
To write down things about her that she finds beautiful. Thank you, Emmy.
Or ask people to send her 5 things that they find beautiful about her.
Ooh, or ask people to send her 5 things, maybe on the Facebook group where it could be nice and public. Imagine that. Anyone else?
I would suggest to Robin that she looks at herself in the mirror and into her eyes and just say, Robin, you are beautiful.
Oh, what I like about that is it's not saying that I am beautiful. It's actually using the power of the magician, pulling her out of herself, which gives her more perspective, is less inclined to connect with shame, looking at the mirror and say, Robin, you are beautiful. Powerful suggestion, Avenel. Perfect. Anybody else? Going, go on.
She could
Okay.
maybe to tell.
Leslie?
Well, if she's saying, Robin, you are beautiful, she could finish with and I love you.
Oh, perfect.
Ah,
And I love you.
good.
What I would
Yeah.
also suggest potentially is some sentence completion exercises. It is impossible for people to find me beautiful because I know I am not beautiful because if I really believed I was beautiful, then feel like that. Let's go both sides of the polarity, both sides of the same coin. And that stuff will very likely shake up. It's like when you have a flask with river water and all the sediment has gone to the bottom because you've left it for long enough and you shake it all up. These questions and these exercises are designed to shake things up, and it will see in the next session where we are. Sharon, are you okay? Let me just unmute you. Give me a sec.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Benny, I don't know, just feeling I've just hit into something big here for myself.
Okay.
So grateful for that.
So everybody on the call, if it feels good to you, just send Sharon some loving kindness as we explore what's going on. So what was triggered?
It's what's triggered is that I cannot bless myself.
Okay, can you bless someone else?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so pick 2 or 3 people in the call and tap along if that feels okay. Pick 2 or 3 people in this group that you can bless right now.
Okay.
If you can't, then just say, I can't.
I'm confused because I cannot bless myself. So do I have the right to then bless others?
Well, in this particular case, since this is my call, I give you permission to bless someone else because I can say whatever I like. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Good.
Well, I would bless you for developing this work and walking the walk to make this work possible for us.
Thank you. I really appreciate your blessing. I welcome it. Thank you. Somebody else.
I can see here Leslie Hardy.
Yes.
And I bless her for just her beautiful smile, and I love her accent when she speaks. I just bless her for her beautiful uniqueness.
Okay. So close your eyes, Sharon. Just check inside the body. What does it feel like to have blessed me and Leslie in this way?
It feels that there's space and light.
Beautiful. And when there is space and light, what does it feel like when there is space and light?
It feels hopeful.
Good. And when it feels hopeful, is there even one thing about Sharon that you could bless if you were brave enough?
That I've stayed on the call.
Yes. Has it been hard?
Yes.
Yes. And you've done it anyway. I see some, I don't know if you can see, but I see some other people's high-fiving and thumbs up and arms up in a blessing for you, a silent blessing. John is having, I don't know, palpitations by the looks of it. Joy for you. And Sharon, one more thing that you can bless about yourself. Could be about your personality, your persistence, your body, the work, anything. Could be about your hair or your feet.
I take good notes.
Okay. So can you bless yourself for taking good notes?
Yeah.
Is that a useful skill?
For that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Okay. And let's see, you know, when you go to Nando's, not that I eat chicken, but when I used to, you get different flavors. You get the mild, then you get the medium hot, and then you get the, oh boy, hot stuff, right? So are you up for a hot challenge?
Yeah, okay.
Of course you are. That's why you show up on these calls. So here's the question. You've blessed something about what you do, and that is a great start. The reason, by the way, let me ask the group quickly. What is the reason that I got, or that I asked Sharon to bless somebody in the group first?
I think because it
To
gives
show her
some
that she
kind
was
of,
able to.
Okay, thanks, Emmy. Show that you're able to. Megan?
gives a sense of what it feels like possibly for the other person. Then it opens something up in herself as well.
Exactly. So what Sharon shared with us is her blessing self muscle is not very well developed. Now, I don't know that much about Sharon's past, but I tell you, if we did, it would make perfect sense. Given her past experiences, probably in childhood, it could not have been any other way. So it makes perfect sense. So we need to start flexing that muscle. Now, I joined a gym on Saturday. When I did my induction session, I said to the guy, listen, I'm not interested in you putting me through all my paces so I can't walk for 3 days. I'll do this at my pace. So I have not had any muscle aches. I've been there 3 days in a row. Why? Because I'm doing it at the pace that works for my body. So we need to start somewhere. So getting her to flex the blessing muscle and bless me and Leslie, that is also when I asked her, then it opened up something inside of her. When we bless someone else, it opens up something in us. So that was, I didn't know, but I trusted that it would enable her then to bless something about herself. And what she chose was the fact that she takes good notes, which is something that she does, right? She does take good notes. Now we're going to move this just one level up. That's why I asked if she's up for a challenge. Sharon, if you were truly in your power as a woman and as a person with your feet flat on the ground and loving yourself, what about not so much what you do, but what about how you are being in this world can you bless now?
My compassion.
Yes. It comes through the way that you speak. It is unmissable in every communication I have ever had with you. WhatsApp, email, in person, and otherwise. Compassion. So you can bless your compassion?
Yeah.
And what else about the way that you are being can you bless in this moment?
I want to say nothing.
Say again?
Yeah, nothing.
So find one. Just one.
I'm breathing.
Okay, I'll let you off the hook with that one since we want to close up in 7 minutes. So here's the invitation for the group. Only if this feels like something you really want to do, if you're called to do this, if it just feels like the right thing to do, even if you're a little bit nervous, and you have a blessing for Sharon, then unmute yourself and tell her.
I'd like to say something, Sharon.
Megan, go ahead. Sharon,
yes.
you might want to tap through this.
When I haven't actually been with you personally, but I've seen your responses on the Facebook groups, and you bring such depth and insight into something in every question. And it's so, I don't know, each time it's like, yes, 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 and all of that. It just makes so much sense. And as Bennie said, so much compassion. The insight comes with compassion. It struck me every time you respond.
Thank you, Megan. Anyone else?
I would like to bless Sharon for her generosity in giving out the 4 calls that she did for anybody who was willing. And the tapping scripts that she gave me that I am still using, Sharon, were phenomenal. You have real talent, and I really appreciate you and what you've given me.
Imani.
Is some of this landing, Sharon, even if a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's keep going.
Thank you very much.
Sharon,
Dermot, go ahead.
yeah, I wanted to thank you and bless you for your courage in showing up so completely this morning, right here, right now. It's been a blessing for me to experience what you've just done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dermot. Anyone else?
Sharon, I bless you for your passion.
Carol, go ahead.
I bless you for your passion, and you know that I absolutely love your passion. And I love the way you feel things so deeply, and it's an honor to be a part of your life. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Leslie, was that you?
Sharon, I just want to say, I mean, I don't know you. We haven't even been in a room together, but when you were blessing Benny and when you were blessing me, all I could see was your big, beautiful heart. And you weren't doing that just as an exercise. And I could just see your big, beautiful heart. And that is what you want to sit in as much as you can, because it's quite an amazing thing, I think.
Thank you, Leslie. Who's next, if there is anybody?
Sharon, I want to bless you for your kindness and your sweet heart and the beautiful space that you hold for other people.
Thank you, Bob. Liesl?
I've known you, Sharon, for a while, never met in person, and every single communication is just full of kindness. Such kindness. I bless you for that.
There is time for one more if there is. Shirley. Okay, Shirley and Ali.
I bless you for the sessions I had and the way you showed up with your interest and compassion and determination to have me win in my life. And now looking at you now, bring that vulnerability and that raw pain in such an open space. I just bless you for that. I really do. It took so much courage.
Thank you, Shirley.
Ellie?
And Sharon, darling, I just love that your beautiful smile when we talk, and I think that your heart is just the biggest one that I know. Thank you.
Shirley, thank you.
So Sharon, nice deep breath in and out. Here's what I'm going to suggest for you after the call is that you find yourself a soft blanket and you roll yourself in it, or a cuddly toy, or a pillow, cup of hot chocolate, or something to nourish what's happened on this call. Whenever the call is published, I suggest you listen to that part of the call again and again and again. This is what people see in you, and it fascinates me. I just recognized while somebody was speaking. Now, you would not know the rest of you, but Sharon also did some sessions for me, maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And what is so interesting for me, Sharon, that blessing for self is so hard for you, yet blessing others is so natural. You bless me profoundly. Sharon wrote a summary of what I've done in this world that I thought it was someone else. She picked up the beauty and the grace and the skill and the products I have and the mentoring environment. You just blessed the crap out of me. There's no other way of saying that. So I think the muscle is well developed in one way, and it's a case of developing it the other way. And here's the bit you're not going to like, but you're the only one that can do it. Now, here's the thing also. You're the only one that can do it, but you don't have to do it alone. You just saw that in this group. So much love for you. So much love.
I'm so grateful. Thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. It's just what happens, right? This is what needed to happen. So everybody take a nice deep breath in and out. Stretch the body if it wants to. And then on the count of 3, all at the same time. So unmute yourself if you are still muted. I'll unmute some of you. We're checking out, so please share with the group what you are leaving this call with. 1, 2, and 3.
Bless you
Bless
all.
you.
Love.
Acceptance, myself and others, loving myself and others.
Love. Yes.
Feeling so deeply blessed and grateful.
What is that? No. Oh, no mic. Somebody say no mic, bless. Oh, it's Caro. Very smart. So bless you all, beautiful people. And I don't mean just I bless you. I mean bless you. Bless yourselves. Okay, that's the way out. That's the way in. So bless us all, and see you next week, same place, same time. Ciao.
Bless you, Benny.
Bless you, Benny. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.